Hi guys, it's Joe again. So in today's video, you're going to learn how to remove and replace the air conditioning compressor on the 2006 Nissan Murano, including replacing the magnetic coil which sits behind the clutch, which is mounted, the coil is mounted right to the compressor body itself. So that's the main part of this repair. We're also going to touch on, of course, part of the project is removing the serpentine belt. So we're going to touch on that, and you'll be able to know how to replace your own serpentine belt on this car also. And then I also mention and point out how I replaced the bearing which is in the center of the AC pulley. So we're at the front right wheel, and what we're going to do here is we're going to take off this plastic panel here. It's going to give us a nice access to the pulley on the air conditioning compressor. So here's the AC compressor pulley here. There's a bearing in the center of this pulley. This is actually your clutch here. But there's a bearing in the center of this that had failed on this a while back, and it gave this pulley so much wobble that actually ruined the magnetic coil behind there that activates the clutch to turn on your AC. So what we're going to do is we're going to be pulling this off with a gear puller, and of course we got to get the belt off first, but pulling this off with a gear puller, replacing the magnetic item behind it, and then putting it all back together. Hopefully the AC will work. First step for removing the belt is to loosen the bolt that's inside of this pulley. It's right behind here, right where my finger's touching. So it's basically right behind here. That is a 14 mil nut on that. Now you only need to loosen it a couple of turns because you're taking the tension off the adjuster. Then the next step you needed to do is maybe difficult to see, go straight down here. The end of this socket is the top of the actual tension adjuster. So what I've got here is I've got a U-joint with a 14 mil shallow. I had to use a shallow, I couldn't get a deep to fit. Put that on over that, because you better look at where you're working. And then I'm gonna loosen that, and that's going to release the tension on the belt. Okay, so now with that loosened, that allowed me to slide this belt off the pulley, try and tuck it up out of my way a little bit somehow. It's gonna allow me, next thing I have to do here, pull out this center bolt. Now this may seem like overkill, but since this pulley spins, I'm taking this out with an impact. That slides right off for us. There's also a snap ring here. Okay, get my snap ring pliers, pop that thing off. In order to have good access for the gear puller, I had to remove the rest of this plastic shroud in the wheel well. I've just got it pushed down out of my way right now. So the puller gets attached around the pulley, and then this long bolt in the center actually pushes against the center of that shaft there and allows us to firmly but completely pull that pulley straight off. And it has to come straight off. Trust me, I tried this with a hammer and pry bars, and there's no way to get it completely straight off other than using a puller like this. So what happens is I'm going to attach a socket to here, turn clockwise, it's going to slowly pull that pulley up. There it is. So the pulley's off, and now you can see the secondary damage that bad bearing caused previously. What that bad bearing did is it actually made the pulley wobble so much that it chewed up the outside coating and this outer ring of this magnetic coil. This magnetic coil is what activates the AC clutch for you. So I'm replacing this today, and I'll be reinstalling that pulley I just took off. So here's a look with the magnetic coil removed, and this is the wire that used to go into the back of that magnetic coil. It's melted right. The plastic part is melted right down. So here's a look at the front. A look at the front and back of this. And basically what happened, like I said, is the bearing in the middle of this pulley had failed and wobbled enough that it actually scraped this surface bare, shorted out this coil, and melted the wire behind it. Of course, there was a lot of intense heat that happened with that. It destroyed the serpentine belt in the process. So what I did originally, initially before this, is I replaced just the bearing in the center of this pulley. B101107 for the bearing. That is by Santech, S-A-N-T-E-C-H. So basically, by getting the bearing in there originally, that allowed me to get back on the road, but with no AC, because that coil was ruined. This is the new coil. So we get this on eBay pretty reasonably. This is what it's supposed to look like. Pulls right in. I'm gonna have to use some type of crimp connector for this wire, and to the old wire that's melted, trim that back some, attach it in, and once I reassemble, we should have air conditioning again. Okay, so with the magnet installed and connected electrically up here, what I did here is to make sure that this wire doesn't get damaged at all. I actually zip tied it out of the way. You can kind of make it out there. I started by pressing this on by hand, nice and straight. Then I use a small dead blow hammer in a circular fashion, tap, 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 tap all the way around until I had this lip out here again where I can reinstall my snap ring. Okay, so upon first startup, the clutch still was not activating. Okay, so basically what happens is this pulley back here just spins all the time, and then when that magnetic coil behind activates, it locks this tight to spin the compressor to create pressure for the air conditioning. Well, that wasn't happening upon first startup after doing this repair. So I decided that because of the way this got destroyed, and because this was hot, this was electrified when it got destroyed, I started checking fuses. So what I found is in this fuse box, under the hood, I take this cover off, this is tucked in there, and this slides out. I found this red fuse here was a 10 amp. That one was blown. Replaced that, started it back up, and we have air conditioning again. And the wife is much happier because today was awfully hot here.